All right, so here we are, still searching for that elusive first win of the season and sitting in position for the number one overall pick. I am Cincy Jungle's Matt Minich here for Orange and Black Insider. This is Bengals Chalk Talk. Thank you for sticking with me. I know it's not easy being a Bengals fan nowadays, but thanks for sticking around. So a few things I want to talk about before we get into some film. Number one, bad news this weekend. Terrible news about Tua Tagovailoa. I'm sure I butchered that. My bad. But bad news. And even if you were a Burrow fan, I mean, it's just bad news in general. You never want to see something like that happen. And definitely good for the Bengals to have some options. Now, I think people are reacting. We're very reactionary, and we went out and people were already tweeting things right after it happened. So it looks like this, it looks like that. The only people I believe are the people that have examined him. So that's one big thing there. People with degrees that have examined him are the people to believe, because we're going to hear a lot. And right now we're starting to hear some positive things. Oh, looks real good. It's, everything went well. The fact of the matter is, I don't have a degree. I don't have a medical degree, that is. And people who haven't seen him and don't know that stuff, they don't know where he's at. It's going to be up and down, and we're not really going to know what's going on until he gets out there. Unfortunately, the way it's breaking down, even best case scenario, he's probably not going to be able to work out for anybody prior to the draft. I mean, that's what it's looking like. So the Tua evaluation is complete. From a film standpoint, there's not going to be any workouts. The film is done. He is absolutely somebody who should be considered with the number one overall pick based on his film. His medicals were already a concern, and now they have become a bigger concern. And given the Bengals' past with not necessarily being able to determine the extent of injuries prior to the draft on people, very scary. But all I'm trying to say is, hey, let's keep an open mind about it. We don't know what's going to happen with him. I look at a guy like Frank Gore, obviously different position, different time, but Frank Gore, a guy, I believe it was 2 ACLs in college. The guy had a lot of issues with injuries in college, and look at him now. He's one of the oldest players in the NFL, and he is still rolling. So after early injury issues, he has been Mr. Endurance in the NFL, and kind of the elder statesman in the NFL right now, and getting it done. Been climbing up, very quietly climbing up the all-time rushing statistics. So we don't know. I mean, that's what it comes down to, and it's not our job to know, But medical staffs are going to take a good, hard look at that stuff. They're going to want to examine him. They're not going to be able to work him out prior to the draft, but they're going to have to make those determinations, and figure those things out. And it's crazy for us from the outside to be really definitive on anything right now. So really just adds a big fat question mark to the Tua question moving forward. But I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. Who knows? Who knows what can happen? And he still might be the guy in this draft. Long term, that is. So speaking of injuries, interesting news coming out. Cordy Glenn having a chance to play against the Steelers. That would be very nice. We have all seen, what John Jerry looks like at tackle, and it is not a pretty sight. So Cordy Glenn, I think we all thought he was going to get traded. We thought he was going to get cut. Seemed like there was, personal issues there. Who knows? He could be playing this weekend. He could still be around next year. I mean, I don't know at this point. I don't know what to tell you, because that's a crazy story that seems to be not over yet. Still around, and maybe out there this weekend. So we'll have to see where that goes. AJ is still a big question mark. John Ross looks like a couple of weeks out. And Jonah Williams, I believe it's this coming Monday. He has to practice. He's got to be practicing next week if he's going to come back this year. And they've kind of said from the beginning that they weren't going to shut him down, that they thought he had a chance. I mean, you get those guys back. Like all of a sudden that offense might not be terrible. And even with the struggles we've seen at the quarterback position, you throw AJ Green and John Ross into that mix and give him some protection. The last few weeks of the season could be very interesting. So looking at last week's game, just to touch on the defense, last week I talked about schematic issues that I have a problem with, and coaching issues that I saw. One thing about the defense, like I think a lot of their schemes don't particularly make sense. I still can't tell that they have option rules. If they do, I'm not sure those make sense. But I've said this throughout the season. I feel like those guys go though. So whatever negatives we say about the coaching staff, you can say those and they're true. A lot of things are true, and this defense has some issues. However, they're getting those guys to play, and I really believe that this defense, even as it stands right now, you can win games with that defense if you're doing some things on offense from a complementary football standpoint. Now, do we need to make improvements there? Absolutely, but we're just a few pieces away. Linebacker is a mess. Got to figure out what's going on there. Saw some things out of Pratt this week. I kind of broke down Pratt in one of the film rooms. It's out on Cincy Jungle this week. He is potential. He has a long way to go. He's making some mistakes. He's getting hurt in some situations. But now he's going to get a chance, and we're going to see what he can do with it. So hopefully over the next week, next few weeks, he steps up, and at least we can feel good about one guy at that linebacker position. I tweeted out earlier in the week a clip where you could see Nick Vigil didn't pick up a crosser, and it was Pratt talking to him at the end. So the rookie talking to the veteran saying, hey, you didn't do what you were supposed to do. So we see some good things mentally there. We have seen some good things physically in just his ability to run, but we've also got missed tackles. We got failure to get off of blocks, and we have a lot of problems in the pass game. Counterintuitive for what you would expect from a converted safety, but I said this about him coming out. I liked him a lot, but I liked him a lot more against the run than against the pass. He has a ways to go in his pass defense, but his athletic ability gives him potential there, and certainly a lot more potential than what we were seeing, with slower, less athletic linebackers that we've had at that position in the past. So hopefully we see something out of him and gain some faith in him moving forward, but still we're going to need to add a linebacker next year through the draft, through free agency, somebody that can be a plug and play. Probably a strong safety as well. Sean Williams has some positive qualities, but there's some things lacking there too. So need to find a guy that can cover tight ends, that can be kind of a versatile moving piece within that defense. Hopefully Jesse Bates bounces back. Good to see him getting a pick, but we need to see more out of him getting to where we thought it could be after his rookie year. And there's some talent at the cornerback position. Jackson's got to be who he can be. Kirkpatrick's got to cut out the mistakes, but beyond that, you got Webb, potentially Dennard, if he comes back. Phillips, another guy who's been injured, but they're saying, I believe, returning to practice this week. So there's some pieces there, and up front, there's definitely some pieces as well. You can always use another pass rusher, but the defensive tackles next to Atkins have really stepped up this year. we've seen a handful of guys in there, and I think Ronell Wren's another guy who could develop. Another interior pass rusher could be definitely a positive in there. It was great to see some of Lawson out there, somewhat limited, and that's another thing. I did a film room on Lawson and how they deployed him, so check that out on Cincy Jungle this week. So Lawson doing some good things out there as well, and they moved him around. They had him inside. So good to see some of those things. And I think the front, the defensive line can be pretty good. Linebacker's the big problem, and the strong safety who's kind of a second level sort of guy too. Those are things that they really need to hash up. But I mean, that defense, it can be okay. And it's only a few pieces away from being decent in my opinion. So you look at the numbers and they're not good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this defense is good, but I don't think they're quite as far away defensively as maybe we think they are. So take a look. We're going to take a look now at film and get a little bit into Ryan Finley and the 2-minute drive to end the first half. So talking a little bit about Finley, but about some of the other things that were going on that drive and how exactly that all unfolded. So the Bengals had a very interesting drive to end the first half. And it was interesting good and it was interesting bad. And obviously ended up poorly for them in the end. But we will get to that momentarily. So they used their timeouts in order to make sure they did get the ball back with some time on the clock. And they got the ball with 1:31 on their own 35-yard line. They came out in an empty formation. 3 receivers spread out to the left, 2 receivers spread out to the right. Now, when I say things like receivers spread out, I'm talking about their alignment. I'm not talking about their position. A lot of times it is a tight end, it is a running back. Here, when I'm in this particular case, I am referring to both Eifert and Giovanni Bernard as receivers based on their alignment. So the Raiders matched the empty look with a 2-high look, and it ended up being 2-man. Okay, so there's no backers left in the box. They're sending 3. They've got 2 players back, 5 players in man. That leaves no linebackers in the box, and really nobody's looking at the quarterback until you get all the way deep to the safeties. Now, if we learn something from Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, it is that you cannot play 2-man to an athletic quarterback. And Ryan Finley is not Lamar Jackson, make no mistake, but he can move a little bit. He's a guy that can run, and he shows off the wheels here. So the pocket starts to collapse. It's not absolutely terrible, but Finley recognizes the coverage, and instead of moving in the pocket and trying to keep his eyes downfield like he often does, he takes off right away. So good job. That's what he should be doing. Now, what's really impressive here is he gains 10 yards pretty easily. And he could have got the first down or close to the first down and slid down. But that's not what he does. He gets right there to 10 yards. He's got a defender there, and he makes a cut. He cuts behind one of his receivers, and he's able to pick up some additional yardage. So he ends up getting 24 yards on that play, getting them all the way down to the 41-yard line. So good job there. Really, you're coming off. It's a 2-minute drive. You're trying to score, and picking up that many yards, whether it be with your legs or with your arm on the first play, that is a great start. So very good job there. Move the chains and get nearly into field goal range already with the first play of the drive. So that brings up another 1st and 10. So it's 1st and 10 on the 41-yard line, the Raiders' 41-yard line. They came out in a 2-by-2 set with receivers tight on both sides of the formation, and one back in the backfield with Finley in the shotgun. So to this, the Raiders counter with a 1-high look. And Alex Erickson is at the bottom, and right away it looks like that's where Finley wants to go. He's kind of staring in that direction. He actually pumps a little bit in that direction, but Erickson is covered tightly down the sideline. Now, as the pocket starts to collapse a little bit, and it's definitely in worse shape here than it was in the last play, Finley steps up. He starts to move, and then he zips the ball out to Giovanni Bernard in the flat. And Bernard's able to get down to about the 35-yard line. So that is putting them roughly in field goal range. That's about where the ball ended up at the end of the drive when they did kick a field goal. So after 2 plays, not bad, and Bernard gets out of bounds. Now the bad news, it's coming back. It doesn't count. There is a hold on Jerry I guess it's a good hold because it would have been a sack probably. But the hold on Jerry knocks them back out of field goal range and into 1st and 20 on the other side of the 50. So not good there. Definitely not what you're looking for. And they come back out in another empty look. 3 receivers to the left, 2 receivers to the right. And once again, we are getting a too high look from the Raiders. This ends up being a zone look, though. It's not going to be a 2-man look. And it's not exactly a cover 2 look either. They're kind of doing a combination thing on the top. But they get the too high look. And again, Finley makes a pretty good read here. So to the 2 receiver side, you've got Auden Tate as the outside receiver and Giovanni Bernard inside. So those inside guys are going to hitch up. And Tate is running a deep dig route. So, the idea here is Bernard hitches up, and that freezes the backer. Okay, so the backer is going to look at Bernard. That opens up a little bit of room behind that linebacker. So Tate fits into that window behind the linebacker and in front of the cover 2 safety. Finley makes a great read. He sees that, and he throws what's a fairly tight window throw to complete that ball in to Auden Tate, all right, in the levels there between the safety and the linebacker. So pretty good job there. Like I said, pretty good read and completing the ball to Tate, picking up 14 yards on the play. So not quite, not the first down, but hey, getting you into a good second down situation where now it's 2nd and 6 and something, where you're in a much more reasonable situation. Now, they line up, and the play clock gets down to 16 seconds before they snap the ball. So don't really seem to be in a huge hurry. They snap the ball with 30 seconds left, and using quite a bit of the play clock. But it is all for naught, and they get a penalty on the play. It was a false start on Billy Price, and the result of that is a 5-yard loss, kicking them back to 2nd and 11. So now they're in a not so good second down situation. Whereas 2nd and 6 was on the 37-yard line. They were right there on the fringe of field goal range from the 37. You're looking at about a 54-yarder if you snap it from there. So not quite, but very close. And now you're back definitely out with 2nd and 11 on the 42-yard line. So not a good look there. And the other thing it does is there's a 10-second runoff related to that penalty. So whereas they snapped the ball there, the second down play was they were going to be snapping the ball, with 30 seconds. It ends up going down to 17. So that puts them in 2nd and 11. And in the 2nd and 11, once again, they're coming out in an empty formation. See a little bit of a trend here between the 2 formations on this drive. And it's cover 2. All right, cover 2 man again with 2 deep safeties. And those safeties are real deep, but they can do that because they're playing man underneath. So there's not going to be those windows like we saw on the previous play. Now, one area that's common to try and hit in two man, and as a defensive coach, I don't love it. I don't think it's a great play, but a lot of offensive coordinators think they can hit this, and that's where they try and hit it. Is right up the seam, and basically they put it on the outside shoulder of the guy running up the seam. So that's where they put it. Eifert has to adjust. He does not make the catch. He makes a good adjustment. The ball's where it should be for that throw, if that's what you're going to try and do to cover two man. And the safety's breaking on it, but really it's just Eifert can't come up with the difficult catch. So again, good job by Finley. Like I said, I don't love the play call, but good job by Finley. He puts the ball where it should go in that situation. He puts the ball opposite Eifert. Live it might look like a bad ball because Eifert has to do something so crazy to get there, but that's because inside is it's two man, so you can't throw it inside. That's where the defender is. If Eifert comes down with that, they're going to get a first down. They're going to be on about the 19-yard line. So a good play call from that sense. It's picking up some good yardage. And they probably have time to run one more play, maybe take a shot at the end zone, and then know that they're in good position for a field goal. But no catch, no dice, and that brings up 3rd and 11. So on 3rd and 11, they got back what they had lost yardage wise. And there's an encroachment penalty on the Raiders. So that gets them back to the 5 yards and brings up 3rd and 6 from the 37-yard line. So again, now 37-yard line, they're right there on the fringe, 13 seconds in the half. They just need to get a little bit to make it a reasonable attempt at a field goal. Again, no timeouts, and no timeouts really hurts them. And I understand why they don't, because they were using timeouts to get the ball back, but it limits what they can do. So what do? They don't really have time to take a shot or anything. They can't take a shot because it's 3rd down. So they hit Eifert in the flat real quick where he can get out of bounds. Not even trying to get the first down, get to the flat, get out of bounds. Gives them 4th and 4 with 8 seconds left and a chance at a field goal that they would miss. All right. So it stinks here because there are some things open in the middle of the field. First and probably most obvious is Auden Tate running across the middle of the field. That's probably first down depth, which if you have a timeout, it was going to be 8 seconds about, like, you got a shot. You can take a shot anyway. So you got one more play to take a shot. And then outside of Tate, they're in a 2-by-2 formation. Eifert was to the right in the tight 2-by-2 formation, and Tate and Boyd to the left. Boyd was outside, and he ran a deeper dig route, and he was really open on that. The linebacker, eventually reacts to Tate coming across, and Eifert would have been open for a pass at about the 22-yard line. Again, no timeouts, nothing you can really do about that. So not really a bad read here because Finley's doing what he has to do. He can't complete those balls. But they, if they had some more opportunities there, there was a potential for some other things to be open. There were some interesting things on this drive. I think Finley executed relatively well. Obviously, the holding call, the offsides, really put them in a bad spot. They lost some time. They lost yards off of those things. Obviously, I don't think any of us feel great about Ryan Finley right now, but the way he executed on this drive and some of the things he did, to me, it shows he definitely has the potential to be a very solid backup. At least that. Uh, so moving forward, the Bengals find their quarterback of the future. Finley looks like a guy that you could have behind that guy, who could be there, and in a pinch when he has to come in for a drive, or he has to come in and win a game with you or something. If you have some tools around him, I think that he can be successful in the short term. He is not a guy. Definitely not seeing anything right now to think that he's a guy that they could build a team around. But I think if you have a team, if you have a good team and some good players there, you can definitely put some things around him and come up with some wins, finish off some games, do what you need to do in a pinch. If you have your quarterback out, if you've lost that quarterback. So, all right. So that is going to be it for this week's podcast. We have got the Steelers this weekend. So big game. And the Bengals are in position. For those of you who are much more concerned about draft position than anything else right now, the Bengals are in position. They can win a game. And it's going to come down to things a little bit with the Redskins, but they can win a game. And if they're going to win one game this year, it'd be good for it to be the Steelers. And that'd be very good for Zach Taylor, because I'm sure he's going to have to answer a lot of questions about this year anyway. If it ends up being an 0-16 question, it's going to be tough for him. But if he can go off and beat the Steelers, beat that mental hump that I think the Bengals have, that barrier that prevents them from playing well against the Steelers often, and get that win. That's something. And even though the Steelers are depleted, it's still something, because I think there's a real mental barrier to that within this franchise. So it would be a big time win, and it would be very helpful to Zach Taylor, to his future prospects in Cincinnati, if they can pull that off. So it'll be interesting to see. Hoping for a good game. That's where we're hoping every week. But they were competitive against the Raiders, a much better Raiders team than what the Steelers team is looking like, with all their injuries. But we'll have to see. We'll see what's going on with them. But interesting to see that. And hopefully, we're coming out next week talking about the first win. We've got some very positive things to talk about. So, thanks again for joining me back here every Thursday, and go Bengals.